Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is time for the winners finals of our deathmatch tournament. Ryuk loading in here with Zeus in the red color, and his opponent on the other side of the map also Zeus, as we allow mirror matches these days. This is Matador. So this matchup should be just Athena, Apollo, and Hera, but seems Matador prefers Dionysus. That will be interesting to see how that goes. See if the Hydra plays a role, see if the Bronze gets to play a role. Certainly Underworld Passage is a great mobility power in Deathmatch. Both players are making a little bit of every building type. Ryuk starting up with the fortresses, Matador going a little bit heavier on the overall production. That's interesting. Also, Ryuk has picked up a relic here for building hit points. That is going to be very nice going forward. The Manticore is already doing a great job here of picking off some of these lighter infantry units. And especially before they get their champion upgrades, that's going to be nice. Hippa's Pissed and Peltas is probably going to be the name of the game here. Ryuk still printing a bunch of Toxotes, but I think he's going to stop shortly. He's mixing at the moment between the two. Matador way more committed to the Peltas action. Let's see how that ends up working out. Both players are arriving to Mythic roughly in the same moment. So that's been pretty clean from both sides. Matador, though, has a much bigger army, already up 30 population and counting, largely due to the Peltas mass in the background just getting to do a lot of work. These guys have 5.8 DPS, so they're not quite as damaging as Toxotes would be. You have almost double the DPS, but as long as you shoot archers or ranged units, they'll do the trick. Well, the choke point is going to be the next spot here for Ryuk, but he's still dropping in population, having to use a defensive restoration. An aggressive one getting used by Matador. It seems to me Ryuk might be just getting overrun. A slight bit faster back DC here for Matador, coming up with at least 3 villagers working on it, but Lorphin is out. The Hydra has 4 heads already, with the 5th one probably not being far away. Why isn't it showing damage stats on this boy? I'm so sad. Give me back the damage stats on the Hydra. It must have been thousands of damage. One of the fortresses is already getting torn down. The Helipolis are trying to go after the Petrobolas. Let's see if Matador is going to shoot back with those. It doesn't look like it, so they should be able to take them down pretty easily. Ryuk is holding for now-ish, but if his last fortresses are getting torn down, then he doesn't have siege anymore. And the patrol boss can kind of just do whatever they want. Siege versus siege is still a big part of the game, after all. Although these guys have 85% crush armor. Right, Bellarfin is out for Ryuk. There is some hope to bring this back, maybe. He's got a good amount of Medusa. But can he get out some Hippa's Fist himself? At the moment, he's trading a lot of Hippeus, which are extremely expensive. You can see in terms of the resources, Matador has a lot more in the bank because he's just making the cheaper units. Peltas, Hoplite, Hippa's Fist, they don't cost much gold, do they? Ryuk has so many Peltas now that I don't think it's easy to engage him anymore. Petrobolas are doing a great job of tearing down these fortresses. Bronze is in, so Matador might just be able to break through the remainder here. Just tearing down a few more buildings. Ryuk won't have enough production to keep this up. Matador has a back TC. Ryuk has a back TC. So the economy is roughly in a similar spot in terms of income, but Matador just has more gold. Wonder how much longer that will last. Ryuk has used up all his wood, however, already, so the villagers will have to just gather wood at this point. And bronze is an absolutely huge problem for him, as well as these hoplites just tank all day. They can do this forever. The Peltas are being separately controlled very nicely by Matador. They're picking off several enemy Peltas before they even get to shoot back. So that's very nice, but they're getting distracted by the Helipolis. A little bit of shift clicking action here, and he should be done. Ryuk is down to 80 population, and that's probably going to be game, as there's no way he can remake the army without additional buildings. He hasn't had backup stuff, and Matador gets a quick 5-minute 58 victory here in the first match. Yeah, you can just see the military unit count has been head for Matador for the whole time, so no wonder there that he outkilled Ryuk. How much by? Almost by double. That's insane. Ladies and gentlemen, game number 2 of this series. In the blue color, we have got Matador, and he's gonna be playing as Freyr. Unfortunately for Freyr, we don't actually have an overlay card at the moment, so I'm just gonna pull up the random, okay? We have to make that. We have to make that. But this whole overlay is going to be available to everyone once we fix the missing Freyr. Ryuk, however, is going for Kronos, which is one of his better gods for sure. He's going to be boosting up the build rates with the manners, time shifting them forward, and then putting on significant frontal pressure. He's already trying to get something done here with the Prometheans, but I don't think they'll be able to do much more than pick off the Draugr there. Matador not making that large of a building amount, honestly. The Great Hall by the town center should be well placed to protect it a little bit, as Kronos can do some really crazy stuff with the initial flood, especially as the palaces come up. They might be able to completely deny this hill fort. The Cairo Ballista are already out, as Ryuk is just blazing through the early game with a very, very fast build order. The manners affecting multiple buildings. His town center will come up very quickly, as well as it's being boosted by 3 manners. And being Prometheus, you have Theft of Fire, right? Okay, the hill fort will come up in the end. Ryuk wasn't terribly focused on this, but it can be deconstructed at least, so that no units get reduced from it, so there's no firepower coming out of it. We've got a good number of satyrs, a very powerful anti-myth unit, but it won't be doing so well against the Bear Greasy. The double Warden of Tartarus, however, should be able to knock down any building in the way. Golem Bursty has to be used early on, which is definitely not the place you want to be in. Towers are coming up for Ryuk, so he's got a lot of building firepower here. You can see that these palaces are already doing hundreds of damage, soon into the thousands, but the Golem Bursty ditto going kind of nuts. We got a lot of Hero Murmillos, so they'll be great against Fafnirs coming out, until there's a critical mass of throwing axemen. Once there is a critical mass of throwing axemen, the infantry line will just absolutely disappear. And also, you have to remember these Vidar Berserk with full upgrades, as is usual in Deathmatch. You just get all the upgrades for free after all. Yeah, those Vidar boys are insane. Bear Greasy seem to be tanking really, really nicely. Atlantis doesn't have a whole lot of divine damage to counter them, so they just get to be absolute tank in all the possible ways. The free town center situation for Ryuk is imminent, however, and he's starting to secure the size of the map, hunting some black bears. Very few builders from Matador on the back TC, so population-wise he's gonna be on the struggle bus, whereas Ryuk should be able to rebuild fairly easily. I would love to see from him maybe a little bit of cavalry, so he can deal with those throwing axes a little bit easier. But there's not going to be any sneaky business going about. It's just the market. It's just the walling. Interesting map though for Deathmatch. Like, you get a lot of central focus, but nobody said nothing about not being allowed to do side attacks. It will probably happen, and honestly, Matador is definitely not doing well here. Those throwing axemen, yeah, they're great against infantry, but once you go up against Cairo Ballista Arcus, you're gonna need to switch it up a little bit. And I certainly like the Bear Greasy idea. Would love to see a bunch of more cavalry. Even though there's so many towers, you know, Granulations has been nerfed back again to normalcy, so you can actually use cavalry now. despite the higher firepower from these buildings. And also, we are playing on a slightly patched game, so like advanced fortifications isn't as crazy here. It's just 30%, not 50. Yeah, those fortresses aren't gonna wreck your cavalry by themselves. Anyways, Tempest. Tempest is wrecking the Atlantean army. It seems that Ryuk is running out of gold. That's big trouble right there. He does have some gold income coming in, but it's not much, and trade is not on the way yet. So Matador might just have enough population here to blaze through, not having to worry too much about what Ryuk has got, and eventually Inferno will unlock. It starts on cooldown in Deathmatch. You unlock it very quick, right? But you don't actually get to use it immediately. That would be crazy. So there's a little timer here. In 1 minute, we're also gonna get an Inferno. But I'm not sure there's gonna be anything to Inferno. All the buildings are getting torn down. There's barely any palaces left. And Ryuk's trying to desperately rebuild, but he allowed the throwing axemen to do their thing, right? And the siege behind this is a good number of ballista in the back. So that is gonna be torn down, and now you just follow it up with an Inferno once Ryuk finally gets an army back. Maybe just allow it to happen actually, because it will do so much damage. Yeah, just let him get some units and do a big Inferno then, damaging the buildings and the army at the same time. And Ryuk shouldn't have any money to remake the army, but maybe he doesn't anyway. In fact, Matador is feeling comfy enough to just throw down the Hellfort there with a single builder. No problem. It's building faster in the later ages anyway. And by the time I finish this sentence, the town center will be gone. I can't even finish the sentence. That's how fast it's moving. The siege buffs and the TC staying at the same health. Maybe a little bit too crazy even for Deathmatch. Ryuk doesn't have anything left, and that's GG already. Matador moving into the grand finals. Ryuk having to fight through the losers finals. Oh, I get to take a breath. That was wild. Ryuk did outcollect Matador, but I don't think the 5,000 extra resources helped when Matador outkilled him a little bit. And just seemingly destroyed way more buildings, especially. So that's pretty expensive stuff. Not necessarily covered by that. 17 Bear Greasy? Is that real? Is this stat actually fixed? Huh, maybe. We want to thank our website patrons. This is by far the best way to support MetaPlays. Your contribution helps keep the project sustainable and allows us to produce more and better content. If you aren't yet a patron, check out our link in the description and get in touch to collect your perks. We will see you the next time.